Welcome to the Daily Jump. And today we're going to be talking with Hughes Chassé. He is a psychiatrist with a private practice based in Ottawa, Canada. He's got over 40 years experience dealing mainly with adults who are dealing with depression, anxiety, and trauma. I'm really delighted, Hughes, that you're able to join us today as we explore a new topic, which I think is really relevant to uh, the times that we're living in. So maybe if you just start and tell us a little bit about your practice, where it's based, and how it's been impacted by COVID-19.
Oh, my practice now for since '93 is private. It's in town. I'm practicing with other psychiatrists, and we receive patients, uh, mainly adults. One of us is receiving also adolescents, but most of us it's adult with anxiety and depression or trauma. And the change that COVID made is that, as for everybody, we are to keep our distance, and we are encouraged to now to see people on the video or by phone, which is something that was not allowed regularly before. But now, because it's a kind of emergency time, they made that possible, and it's working. People like it, and even if it's not completely the same as really seeing someone face to face.
Do you find there's any benefits in shifting that modality with people that you've been seeing for a while?
The benefit is that because I know most of them, I really can see and they feel comfortable to tell me how what's happening, how this COVID-19 and this isolation is impacting them, how they're coping with it. So I think it's really, yes, it makes a big difference to be allowed to interact with our patients that way. It makes a big difference than just waiting for the government to tell us, yes, you're allowed to see people again.
And what do you see as the biggest challenges that people who are self-isolating right now are feeling on the mental health side of things?
S- Strangely, or not, maybe not strangely, for most of them, a lot of them have chronic depression. They are often very already quite isolated. They are quite not very social, not very active. So for them, it's not a big challenge. And many of them uh, told me that they had quite bigger challenge than the COVID-19 before. The major challenge is for the older client who had often no computer, who had no internet, very little family or no family. So it's very difficult for them to get any kind of help from anybody, any support, even for grocery and things or basic thing is it difficult for them. And I think that a lot of their increased anxiety and stress come from that isolation.
And from the lack of availability of support for kind of some of those basic
Yes,
physical needs when they can't get out.
yes. Mm.
So perhaps there's a need for a mechanism for people to connect. Uh,
Y- Yes, but the uh, the thing, as I tell you, is that a lot of the resources now are on internet. If you want any information, it's on the internet. If you want to get in touch with any agency, it's on the internet. So people who only have the old phone thing, it's very difficult.
do you see any way that those people can be supported then if that's a need, or a creative way for people to to locate them or connect with them?
It's possible. It's trying to bring these people who have often a long history of being isolated to try to reconnect with friends, with family, and try to trust people again, which is sometimes difficult. And it's a big issue with some of them to this issue of trusting that people will not reject them, people will help them, and will do what they can.
So, kind of taking the lens out a bit broader than the people that you're working with, and given your professional expertise,
Yeah.
what advice do you have for people um, to kind of stay healthy on this for this aspect of themselves as they navigate something completely new and something that's probably very uncomfortable for a lot of people?
Just remind them that nobody knows exactly where it's going. So in the meantime, if they are isolating themselves, there's a reason for that. It's to save other people, to protect other people while they're protecting themselves, and to try to keep a regular, balanced life, exercise, go outside if they can, read, and the one who are lucky and who know that they can do yoga or meditating, do these activities, and just it's a good time to kind of slow down, and because you don't know how long it will last, and to and it's a good time to make some change. And how do you want to your life after? How do you want to connect with Earth? Do you want really, when it's finished, to go back exactly the way it was before? I don't think so. And I think that people before were so much in very active, doing everything, meeting people, not missing any film, theater, thing that you don't have the time to think about what you're really doing. You're just doing. Now it's a good time to relax. And I said to people, try to do it the first thing in the morning, because when you start your day already agitated, tense, very fast, it's very difficult later to slow down. You really make it easier if you start in the morning to go slowly, please, and also um, think about what things that you want to do in the day. So maybe you will do some of it, maybe not all, but at least you will do something. And I realized also that a lot of people are doing things that they were planning to do for months, years, sometime.
Mhm.
So it's a good way to keep, I would say, usefully slow, and wait until finally we know what's happened with this virus.
Mm. So I heard you say yoga and meditation. Why would you recommend those two things? What is it about those two things? And I think I also, am I understanding correctly, you were recommending to do those first thing in the morning as part of that start off slow.
Yes, because it's my experience that when you're anxious, when you're overwhelmed with fear that comes with things that might happen and all that, it's like when you're starting your day at 150 kilometers an hour, it's very difficult after that to slow down. When it's speeding in your mind, it's very difficult to come back to a pace that is more healthy, more functional too. So starting with yoga, meditation, or breathing exercise, or whatever that works for you, it's easier to get into it. And finally, you often realize that you've done a lot more in your day when you're calmer than when you start uh, all over the place.
Mhm. And maybe not, uh, this is something that I noticed on a couple people commenting on that their habit was to start their day with turning the radio on and listening to the news, and how
Mm,
agitating that was, you know.
mm. I find that my people have been good with that. My patient I talk to, they realize that if they keep listening to the news, they just get more anxious. They just get more afraid because when you look at the newspaper and everything, there's no article that doesn't talk about COVID-19. And in fact, also it's the job of these journalists. They have to write articles, so they all write about COVID-19. And you don't know what's true, what's not true. It's not worth it. Just you can look at the news if sometime. You know that at 1 in the afternoon, at least here in Canada, the prime minister of the province and the Canada will give what's happening, and that's all. Not more than that. You won't learn anything more.
Mm. I've actually been listening to him regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I was reflecting last night on how we should, be interesting to create a list of suggested people in the world to listen to, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain amount of leaders around the world that are doing an extremely good job about just giving out facts, about encouraging calm, and about encouraging unity. And because we're all in the same boat,
Yes.
it doesn't matter who we listen to. We can choose who we think is most uplifting in a way.
Yes. And not contradicting himself. And I
Yes.
think it's important to have a kind of direction, to know there's a direction everybody is going,
Yeah.
and that makes people feel safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
To help articulate the unity so that there's some sort of altitude from which to view all this. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you view it from the reporters on the ground eyes, it's a completely different perspective and position than if you view it with a leader who has some altitude.
Yes, and you know that the leader who talks are also in touch with the scientific people who knows, who does the numbers. So at least it gives a kind of a steady message
Mhm.
that, okay, this is where it is today and tomorrow it will be. So
Mhm.
it gives a direction, and it's a give a security to people too.
What's been fascinating, kind of on that vein to me, is that, um, because I've got a couple of friends who are very wise about the numbers and running
Mm.
models, or
Mm.
who are interested in that, and the degree of predictability that there has been uh, in for those people who this is their specialty.
Mm.
If we take certain actions, what the results are going to be.
Yes.
So I've been in contact with someone in Italy,
Mm.
and who's daily reading all the current science and all that. And so, she, because Italy's starting, well, their numbers go up, they're starting to see a decrease
Yes.
in uh, how many new cases there are every day. So there's new
Yes.
cases every day.
Yes.
There's less new cases. So that means they're coming over the top of the curve.
Mm.
So just amazes me the degree of predictability there is, in a way, for something that's um, unpredictable.
Yes, and I find it makes it more difficult. It's out of the subject in the states to see that between the president and between each state, there doesn't seem to be a clear direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, and that's from my understanding.
Mm.
Part of the reason for that is just the way the system is set up,
Yes, this is what we
and,
see now.
how the power is
Mm.
divided,
mm,
and then also the political um, relationships, as
mm.
of course as well, because that can always be overcome
Yes,
if there was the will. Um, so yeah, and there's consequences for that, and that's what we're seeing here are the consequences for that.
yes. Okay.
So
Mm.
yeah. So any other advice? I mean, one of the things I was reflecting on is that the same advice that we were just discussing about not starting off your day with something that ramps you up, but rather something calming, probably the same could be said at the other end of the day.
Uh, yes, and something I forgot to is that phone people, call for your friends, your family. It's important to not feel alone. And people, family, they are a support to you, but you are a support to them too. And instead of you don't see people outside, you cannot go in shopping center anymore. You cannot walk and talk with people. At least keeping the social ties with these people is also important.
Mhm. So, based on your professional experience and expertise, what are the good things that you're witnessing coming out of this?
The good thing I see coming out of it, it's a bit early because it's only a few weeks, and is it yesterday or 2 days ago they were asking questions to is it Mr. Saint Jacques, who was the astronaut in the there, and he told me that astronauts, we don't know, but they have to train for 6 months to be isolated completely. So they're not always busy. They're not always outside repairing something. So they have to spend a long time. So it's a long training uh, to be able to support and live through that many months without any real contact and alone. And it can be a little bit the same thing here. We have to develop a new way of interacting with people, maybe. Hopefully, I hope that it's like before, people were just stuck in their own little life, so busy, active, the work, the money, the kids, and all that, and forgetting there is a world around. Is it the sky, the trees, the nature, the earth? So I hope there will remain, there will be awareness to stay connected with nature after, so that everybody will keep this awareness that it doesn't work to just go back to what you were before. It because it happened now once the virus. There can be other one after that. You will not protected. We don't know.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, there's a opportunity for something new to be born out of this
Yes.
for each and every one to reconnect with something that perhaps got buried in
Yeah.
all the busyness.
Yeah. And at the same time, uh, if you this period, I think is a good time for people to reconnect with themselves, with the strengths that they had. It's very often people, when they get in panic, when they get anxious over the COVID and all that, they kind of forget that it's not the first time in their life they're anxious. It's not the first time in their life they're going through a big crisis or a big stress. So they have strength inside of them, that they have knowledge, they have something that they have to go through and maybe improve, but there's something there inside of them that they need to come back in touch with.
It brings me back to something you opened with, and that is
Mm.
really interesting to me is that your clients are like, COVID-19, I've experienced worse than this. So,
Yes.
in a way, they're like better equipped, and we've got something to learn from them at this time
Yes.
than people that are worse off as a result of it.
Hmm.
So,
No, I'm really impressed that most of them, the one that I've been talking to over the past 2 weeks, are doing good.
wow.
Mm.
So, is there any professional advice that words of wisdom you'd like to leave us with?
Uh, I just trust trust the strength that you have inside of you. I think that's it's there's something inside of you that knows what to do, that know what you need. Uh, Start with that. I was
Those are really beautiful words to leave us with. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day to spend with.
Oh, you're taking all that time to help people, and I thank you very much.
Well, my pleasure.
The
Ugh,
pleasure.
thanks so much for joining us today.
Mm-hmm.
Daily Jump.